We are still working on adding fractions, two fractions with unlike denominators. Let's look at another example. We have two fractions, two different denominators, and we're going to add them together. Our fractions are 1/5 and 2/3. Remember, we said whenever you see fractions, the first thing you need to pay attention to is your denominator or your denominators. And if they are the same, you keep it, focus on your numerator. But if they are different, then you know that you need to do extra work. We need to find equivalent fractions of 1/5 and 2/3. Remember, we said the way we do that is you take your denominators, find multiples of your denominators, see the least number that they share, and then you set that number as your new denominator. Now let's look at it. From here, we can see that 1/5 is the same thing as 3/15, and 2/3 is the same thing as 10/15. We can already see that 5 and 3, they share the number 15. Let's look at some multiples. We have 3, 6, 9, 12, 15, and so on and so forth. Because we know that our new denominator is 15, we can just stop here. Let's look at 5, because remember, we're taking multiples of our denominators, not your numerator. Because if you do your numerator, you're just going to get it wrong. And remember, your denominator, it tells us how many parts to break your bar model up into or how many parts there are. But being that you have two fractions, we know that we're taking those two fractions from a whole or from your unit. And that's why we need to do our multiples of our denominators to find out what is that whole that we're taking our denominators from. You have 5, 10, 15, 20, and of course, you can always go higher, but remember, we need to find the least number, not the greatest or not anything higher than the least. We can see that both 3 and 5, they share the number 15. And that tells us that our LCD is now 15. I know some of you might ask, what is the whole point of doing this? But the whole point of doing this is so that we can have the same denominators or the same denominators. Because if your denominators are not the same, you cannot add them. You cannot subtract. You cannot divide. There is a special rule when we're multiplying fractions. You don't need to find your LCD. But that's for another lesson. If your denominators are different and you're adding, subtracting, or dividing, then you know that you need to find your least common denominator and get your denominators to be the same by finding equivalent fractions. We have 1/5 is the same thing as 3/15, and we have 2/3. That's the same as 10/15. And we are going to focus on our new fractions, which is 3/15 and 10/15. And now we're going to add them together because those are the same denominators. Keep your denominator, focus on your numerator, which is 3 plus 10. And we know that 3 plus 10 is equal to 15. So guess what? 3 plus 10 is equal to 13, not 15. Oh my. So that is our answer. There's nothing less. There's nothing less for us to do. We're still adding fractions with unlike denominators, meaning that our denominators are different. Now we have 3/7 plus 121. What are we going to do? Here is a challenge. Pause this video, Try to solve it on your own and then come back. All right? Challenge yourself. We already know what to do. So you find equivalent fractions of 3/7 and 121. We know that 3/7 is equal to 921 and 121 is equal to 121 because that's unit fraction. Because your numerator is 1. We already know what to do. You find your least common multiples of your denominators by finding multiples of them. And we have 7, 14, 21, 28, 35. And of course, we can either stop or you can continue. But because you have this other big number, you want to go onto it and make sure that you're not doing any extra work because your whole goal is to not work hard. So now you have 21. The multiples are 21 and 42. We can stop here because you can already see that your new fraction or your new denominator is 21. Now that your denominators are the same, do we change them or do we leave them? If you said we keep them, then you are correct. Keep your denominator. Focus on your numerator. And remember, now you're working with your new fractions. You have 921 and you have 121. 9 plus 1 is equal to 10, and your denominator stays the same. Do not change it. Nope, nope, nope. Don't do it. Your answer is 1021, and that's it. So we did go over adding fractions, two fractions together, some with like denominators as well as some with unlike denominators. In the next lesson, we are going to learn how to add fraction plus a whole number. And when we go over it, you're going to see how easy that is. Because when you're adding a fraction plus a whole number, all you're doing is putting it together. You're going to see. See you in the next video.